Wives were to obey their husbands in the same way slaves obey their masters. Anyone who believes that women are equal with men in the Bible is kidding themselves. The problem is not going away. Another way that extreme forms of religion control and enable racism, sexism, and homophobia is using God's justice. If you read the Bible, you know what God's justice is. God's justice is wiping out the entire world for behaving in the way he created them to behave. We know this as the flood. Using God's law, the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments don't protect women and children from abusive men. The Ten Commandments tells us that women and children were the property of men. And when you harm them, there is no confirmation of harm. It's that you touched a man's property. When you support the Bible, you support human trafficking. Women were sold by their father into marriage to their husband. And if you were married to a bad man, there was no escape. Religious people also use the term sin to heap shame, guilt, and depression on people. The problem they don't see is that they're a hypocrite. Nobody is perfect. White privilege is also a horrible thing, but it can be used for good. Men have privilege over women, but they can use it for good. Religious people use the term sin or abomination to dehumanize people. Religious people also use the gospel to show that they are a terrible person and in need of salvation, even though the people who have already been saved are still terrible people who do terrible things, like yelling during someone's funeral who were killed by hateful people. The church has also been used to enable racism. When you see a picture of people in positions of authority in church, how many of those people aren't white? Heresy is another way churches and religions use to accompany racism. The Bible supports slavery and racism and gender and ethnic cleansing. Sounds like something out of Adolf Hitler's manual. Anyone who supports the Bible and Christianity is supporting some of the worst acts in human history. The way they view sexuality and marriage can be extremely racist and sexist. Your race pretty much decides the health care you receive, how long you'll live, what position in society that you'll have, where you live, and what assistance you get from the government. If something were to happen to one of your children, if you're not white, you've already lost 22% of odds that your child will be returned safely, because media coverage is about 20% less for people who aren't white. Hence the term missing white woman syndrome. If you're Hispanic, African American, or any other minority, the odds of your disease being diagnosed is 12% less than white women's. On average, women wait in hospitals 45 minutes longer than men, or an hour and a half longer than white men if you're African American or Hispanic. It's also 2 to 4 years longer wait for people waiting to be diagnosed with autoimmune conditions or life-threatening tumors. Your race, your sex, and how much money you make determines how long you live, the quality of life, and if people view you as inferior. There are places in this country that display the Confederate flag or symbols of Nazism. The only place a Confederate flag deserves to be is in a museum of American or African history. If you're not a racist, but you portray or display a Confederate flag, that's racist adjacent. People who don't want to fly pride flags or sue or are angry about pride flags flying for inclusion is a bigot. Anybody who discriminates against someone due to their race, gender, orientation, lifestyle, or religious difference is a bigot. We're all born as people who care about each other. We're all born atheists. You have to be taught to be religious, sexist, homophobic, racist, and white privileged. You have to be taught that other people are inferior. If you Google different states, only 22 states include orientation as a hate crime if a crime is perpetuated against you. There is little to no protection for women against abusive men. Men face little to no consequences for behaving like an animal. Google the trial of Diddy for a very modern example of why men are not held efficiently accountable. People who bring misconduct into church authorities' notice face retribution, shunning, and being silenced. When an institution that say they are ordained by a God who supports the worst acts in human history and even punishes people who refuse to act and perform these acts of atrocity, these people support the worst things. Even the nicest person who's a Christian, if you read, support the Bible or support any religion whose book records